Now we're going to welcome our sister, Katie.
Webster's dictionary defines, sorry, I'm just kidding, I just need to make Mom roll over in her grave for a second. Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here. Obviously, trying to narrow down my mother's entire life and impact to a 5-minute speech is a fool's errand, so I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to talk about today, knowing that whatever I said would inevitably feel incomplete. My relationship with my mother was incredibly special, and I could go on for days about how much she meant to me or some of our memories together, but I wanted to give myself at least a chance to get through this without bawling hysterically. So instead, I started thinking a lot about Mom's legacy and what kind of lessons she left behind for all of us. I'm fairly certain if I asked everyone here today to close your eyes and call to mind the one quality you most identify with my mother, that the majority of us would come to the same answer: her uniquely brilliant mind. I know I can't be the only one here who'd insist that Mom was hands down the smartest woman they will ever know. So I can't imagine how else to begin a tribute to her than to take a moment to appreciate just what an incredible source of both intelligence and wisdom she was, and what an inspiration and a role model she was for all of us in this respect. From her days as a high school debate champ, to her legal and editing careers, to her work as a mediator, Mom had this ability to peel away the fluff and instantly get at the core of an issue. Anyone who was brave enough to ask her to edit their writing, as many of us here frequently did, can attest to the absolute avalanche of red pen she could send back your way. Ripping weak points to shreds, wholly reorganizing your arguments, and always making your work so much better for it. At the same time, she was also an encyclopedic repository of information, dominating every game of Jeopardy or trivia we played in a way that made it seem effortless. Whatever the subject, for as long as I can remember, whenever I've had a tough question or wanted some historical context on an issue or just needed to unpack something complicated, I've turned to Mom, knowing no matter what, that Mom would have the answer. I feel like a lot of us here have had that experience. Whenever I pressed her for where she'd pick up some obscure fact, she'd always just smile and dismiss my question with a coy, "I know some things." But of course, growing up with her, I saw firsthand the ways that she grew and cultivated that knowledge day in and day out through her incredible love of learning. This insatiable curiosity, which Mom exemplified and worked so hard to instill in her children, is one legacy that I hope will guide and inspire me and all of us now in her absence. Most visibly, this curiosity came out in her love of reading. As you all know, Mom was never without a book in her hand. She loved fiction and nonfiction alike, and she'd often find herself so enthralled with the subject, from the Civil Rights Movement to the Civil War, that she'd work her way through all the titles she could find and then start seeking out classes and plotting trips to museums and battlefields once she'd exhausted all the literature. She took it as a point of pride to be well-informed on history and current events, and to never rely on spin or shallow analysis when she could dig deeper on her own. I'll never forget walking in her last year, pouring through a copy of the Pentagon Papers for fun like it was a novel, and casually announcing she was currently doing a deep dive on Vietnam. Or her "I read the Mueller report" button. That she purchased a duplicate of, but never managed to hand out because she'd never found anybody else who actually made it cover to cover. Her curiosity, though, extended so much farther than her library, and her excitement when visiting a new art exhibit or finishing a crossword puzzle or sharing what she just learned from some new course, from piano to poetry to napkin folding, was genuinely contagious. In the last year of her illness, she decided on a whim to take up Spanish, and she challenged me to download the same language app so we could compete to log more daily practice hours. Not because she had any use for Spanish or would ever get to travel again, but simply for the joy and satisfaction of learning something new. I hope this joy and excitement will stay with us, and that Mom's memory will serve as a reminder for all of us to dig deeper, to try new things, to ask the hard questions, and to always be curious. The second legacy of my mother's that I hope to carry on and that I hope we can all learn from is the art of what she called kith and kinning. As everyone here can testify, Lani has always been the glue that holds our extended family together, even long before she became our matriarch. As the oldest of 6, she was a surrogate mother for most of her life, both to her own siblings and later to numerous nieces and nephews, friends of her children, and others who looked to her for guidance, support, and a non-judgmental ear. Her door was always open, and her home was always the hub around which we all gathered, the place where most of our collective memories were formed. She brought her unparalleled creativity, wit, and high standards to every occasion, from designing elaborate themed birthday parties each year for her granddaughter, to challenging relatives to a Marshmallow Peeps diorama contest last Easter, to hosting an annual girls' weekend she called Mama Lani's Weekend, featuring meticulously planned activities ranging from sailing on the San Francisco Bay, to volunteering at a women's shelter, to a chopped-style cook-off with mystery basket ingredients and handmade prizes. Mom valued relationships, both individual relationships, but also those shared collective bonds and experiences that make a group of people a family. She understood that maintaining those relationships requires active labor, remembering birthdays, sending thoughtful gifts, hosting memorable get-togethers, and building lasting traditions. And she valued and treasured this work, always going above and beyond to create special memories for us and bring the whole family together. Mom called this art the practice of kith and kinning, and it's a skill she worked hard to pass down, lovingly modeling for me how to write a meaningful thank you note, or choose and wrap the perfect present, or plan a party filled with beautiful handmade details. Kith and kin, of course, is an old expression meaning one's friends and family, but the concept of kith and kinning as a verb of friends and family is not just something we have, but something we do, something we actively work to build and maintain, was all her own, and goes to the heart of who Mom was. The shared relationships and memories here today are a testament to the success of these efforts and set a standard for us to live up to if we hope to honor her legacy. So this work of kith and kinning and maintaining these relationships now falls to us, and I know we'll make her proud. Finally, as everyone here knows, and as Rima already touched on, Mom was an incredibly strong and passionate person, and I could go on and on about her badassery and her resilience and what a force to be reckoned with she was. But maybe more importantly, in terms of how she inspired me and how she chose to think about herself, Mom was a fierce advocate for the issues she cared about and was passionately committed to leaving a legacy of justice. My mom had the biggest heart. Anyone who met her can attest to how compassionate and generous she was, not just towards her loved ones, but toward anyone or any creature in need. She always cared strongly about equality and civic engagement, and would stress to me from my earliest memories how hard generations of women before me had fought for our rights, and how hard we still had to go. And I always thought of her as my feminist icon. But beginning in her late 50s, Mom experienced a period of deep transformation and growth that really radicalized and lit a fire under her in a different way. She struggled to rebuild her life and identity following a traumatic divorce and mental health struggles. She became more self-reflective, more critical of her impact on the world, and much more driven to use her limited time on Earth to make a difference. Convinced that she'd more or less squandered her law degree in her youth by fighting for the powerful over the powerless, she was determined that in this second chapter of her life, as she put it, she would help to right past wrongs and in some small way bend the moral arc of the universe toward justice. She began training in conflict resolution and volunteering as a mediator, which blossomed into a passion for restorative justice work and the fight against mass incarceration. She found a hero in attorney and civil rights icon Bryan Stevenson, who argues that we cannot create justice without getting close to places where injustices prevail, and urges people to get proximate to the suffering and the marginalized, a call that Mom took as her personal motto, and she spent the next decade doing just that, bringing restorative circles to juvenile justice settings, training teachers and organizations in restorative practices, and fighting tirelessly for policy change. In her personal life, she showed the same dedication to social justice, constantly looking for chances to critically interrogate her power and privilege. I remember the care she took on a Utah family history tour to build in painful but really important questions about our ancestors' role in displacing and harming the native peoples that had lived there before them. That was her, never afraid to rock the boat. Even despite these efforts in later years, she was always reflecting about the ways she could have done more for the public good in her life and urging others to ask these same questions of herself. She was determined, as she put it, to be a good ancestor. So, on Mom's behalf, I leave you with these lessons: to always be curious, practice your kith and kinning, and to pursue justice fearlessly. We're so lucky to have such a good ancestor, and I'm so lucky to have such a good mom.
Thanks, Kate.